All right, welcome to Block Party. I'm your host, Mike Wahle. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're enjoying, hit the subscribe button, rate and review us. Share us with some NFL friends, maybe some Packer groups. You can find the show on the Process to Perform channel. You can find it on the Andy Herman's Packer Day podcast as well. Look, the Packers lost 41-24. It was an absolute steamrolling. 305 yards for the Baltimore Ravens. I think Derrick Henry set a couple of records, including the guy with the most 200-yard games in his career. This last week, defensive line had no sacks again, 4 touchdowns on the ground. Malik Willis played really, really well, 18 for 21 for 288 and a touchdown. He also had 2 on the ground with some great quarterback keeps, and kind of shows you not only how good he is, but also, in my opinion, what a good, kind of play designer Matt LaFleur was. You see particularly early in the game, I'll show it on tape, for all those complaining about Matt LaFleur as a play designer or a play caller, I think there's situations when things don't work that you can always do that. This game in particular, one of many over the years, does lead you to start questioning the character. No, not the character. That's the wrong word. That is an absolute wrong word. The profile of the player that they're looking for, their ability to draft and develop at the highest level, the culture of physicality in the room, in the locker room, how they, we can say that we're all tough guys in the NFL, but if you don't practice being a tough guy, if you don't practice with intensity, if you don't force yourself to practice at the highest level and believe in what you're doing and understand that that is going to be the difference in the game against your opponent. What's Archillicus say? We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. And I think that's certainly a question that probably needs to be answered. We talked about it a little bit on Andy Herman's show today. But here's the highlights, or whatever you want to call them, from the offense and defense. Again, Malik Willis had a hell of a football game. He's going to make himself some money. It's really nice to see young players, especially on a guy that left Tennessee, where you're kind of probably feel you're like in the abyss. You come over here, history of really putting quarterbacks in good situations, obviously playing behind a really good quarterback in Jordan Love, and then a guy going out there and continually just playing really, really good football. So here's the highlights. We'll do a little bit of recap and some listener questions when we're done. All right, so here we go. We're going to start with this guy's pick, and this is just kind of where the Packers were at head shape-wise. So they show some pressure, bailout. We got the stick and just ball right through his hands. First throw of the year for this kid, and it goes right through our hands. That's tough, man. Real support. That's the kind of game it was, though. All right. So as we already know, the Packers didn't really see the ball for a little while, and Malik Willis starts off the game with a bomb. We talked about it before, and I think it was true for the most part. They're really not a great pass rush team unless they bring pressure. Kind of very similar to us, except for they've got immense run stuffers in the middle. So they play a 3 shell here. A little bit of a double move on the bottom. It's kind of what they got him on later in the game, actually. A little dip and go. And what a confidence booster for a guy like Malik Willis. I wonder what he's going to get in the offseason, man. He looks like a starter to me. Love that they started out the game in 6 offensive linemen, by the way. I just think it's smart. Brings everybody down to the line of scrimmage. You see that's the look they're going for. So, why do we always want, to bring in that extra offensive lineman, aside from the fact that, our tight ends don't block very well without Tucker Kraft. Here's something I want to talk about. We'll talk about later, by the way. Side note, he's never, squared the line of scrimmage. I don't get it. He ends up getting him a little bit of trouble later. You bring that safety down, you're in really good shape. Forget your one-on-one throws. I thought this was interesting by the Ravens, actually. Watch this player. Usually, when you've got a guy and you're going to drop to cover 2, you want to see some sort of backpedal at angle here, but you don't want to turn and run, particularly when you got him in the slot. I don't know if they're trying to rotate all the way over and the backside safety just doesn't get there. But this was kind of a weird look for me. Nope. I'm wrong. So they're playing just a straight cover 2. They got Roquan going to the 3-man side. And, this is where, Matt LaFleur, people talk about, like, oh, Matt LaFleur play design, play caller, blah, 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 blah. It's like, this is a hell of a smart play design. And it's simple. I mean, first of all, there's no way anybody on the line of scrimmage, Kyle Hamilton or anybody, is going to be able to turn and run with Christian Watson. He starts backpedaling at the snap. And it's wraps. Great play design. And then it just kind of goes downhill. Starting here. And, tight end gets pushed back off the line of scrimmage. Hey. By a safety. Granted, he's a big safety, but come on. Just don't get any movement. You see on the backside here, details matter. Footwork matters. So he avoids because he needs to get through. I don't think he should avoid. You want to get more of a stiff arm on this guy. Second step, you just want to be on tracks. 1, 2, not one and erase yourself. But that's just me. You see the backside by Jordan Morgan. He steps underneath himself. As we come into the, so let's watch this tight end. Like, why are you kind of cockeyed a little bit when you got to go out and block here? Like, why not square up and give yourself a better chance? It's little, again, little things. So he gets wrapped up. You see his backside footwork by 7-7, step underneath, so you're late. Now, I think, if I'm him, 71 takes a great first step. Belton, second step crossover, don't love that. Obviously misses the guy almost completely. His backside hand goes over his helmet. So he ends up running just a split flow here with our new fullback. They've got a 300-pound fullback. We've got our backup running back. Do a pretty good job otherwise. Play side. Get 41 to square up, so we got Walker can come off the ball a little bit. But backside blocks is the critical block in these kind of mid-zone runs. Now this is a fourth and 1 here, and you'll see this from the end zone. I'll stop it when they get to motion here. Okay, so you can kind of just do dumb math if you're playing at home. How does this have to look? Got a massive double team here. Oh, I got thicker somehow. That's cool. Let's go back to this. And we got to go Roquan. Roquan's just going to come back around and actually beat backside, which is, this guy is one hell of a football player. And I'm sure Aaron Banks got surprised by this. He's trying to come off and really scare this block. But they're running a stunt. So as they bring that nose tackle across, he's got to be able to get his second step on the ground. And this is where staying square, really 1, 2 square, being able to come back makes it a lot easier. If you really commit and start driving this direction, you got a little bit of a problem. You can always work your hat placement later, but you can see he's just driving kind of the wrong direction. Then gets beat backside. It's a hell of a play by Roquan, honestly. I heard this stat too. What's the other thing? Your chances of success on these 4th and short plays goes up dramatically when you're under center, and we could probably all figure out why. With the lack of having to hesitate in the backfield and all this stuff, right? But nonetheless, you watch the right tackle. He's got hands outside, gets pressed into the backfield. Why you're in 4th and 1, why you're in a 2-point stance. But he just puts both hands outside, gets stood up immediately, pressed back into the hole. Just don't love it. Just don't love that play. I just don't love the idea of running to the 3 technique. If that's Zach Tom at tackle, you feel better about it. I think Belton does a good job here on a 4th down play. But got to get some physicality at the point of attack. Little Keystone Cops here. He's checking, making sure everybody has the signal. They usually get some confirmation from everybody. And, it's tough. Easy way to lose a football game. Who knows what really happened here? But that's just bad luck. Go trips left. Tight end stood up here on the right. Another run. And this is where, this happened on both sides of the ball. Marlon Humphrey, has had a hell of a career, but just completely bites. He's never supposed to get beat outside here. He's come down square. Malik Willis does a great job selling this. But right now, it's the game's like right now. I know it's easy when I freeze frame, but right now the game's being played. Right, as far as Malik Willis still has the football, and he just doesn't see it and just gets outrun. Malik Willis, great job, great call. Another good play design. 1st and 10, bunch look on the bottom. Motion over to a little 2x2 with Golden. Little play action pass. I mean, look at the pocket presence. They got guys running into each other at the top of the routes here. You really have nowhere to throw if you got two guys coming in right at each other. It's kind of tough, So who knows the backstory there? You don't feel good about it. See, Watson kind of slows down. It's like, who's on first? Ends up working out for him because of Malik Willis's athleticism, pocket awareness. Ends up making a big play. That's, 100% Malik Willis play. 3rd and 9. We go spread. Out of gun. They bring Roquan. I don't know how the hell he got out of this. Now, I think this is a design run, first of all. But how he got out of that, I have no idea. What a play by this kid. So Roquan's going to run all the way around on a stunt. So they're going to go down. I think they're going to even go around the end. He goes all the way around. And somehow, I think the defensive tackle doesn't get his shoulders pointed towards the sideline. Sean Ryan just kind of takes him where he wants to go, which is exactly what you're supposed to do on this draw look. Run through 41's arm tackle. I think, Rasheed Walker does a really nice job here on a tough play where you're setting out for the draw, comes in and just tries to keep pressure and drive. So it's really, a half-ass one-arm tackle. But what a fantastic job by Malik Willis, man. Love to see guys making money out there, baby. 2x2. Another keeper. And now this is just a straight pass action. Doesn't look like he's supposed to roll. Decides to. Sees the edge. Takes it. There's obviously some other good plays on offense, but it was tough sledding over there, as you can tell. Particularly in the run game, I put the stats out there already, but it's tough to see. And there's not a lot of teams built like Baltimore, but you play the Eagles or the Bears. I think defensively, the Eagles back with Jalen Carter now healthy. You got a real problem there in the run game. Obviously, the Bears. I don't think the Bears are very good defensively. They showed it again a couple nights ago on the Sunday night game. Excuse me. They're just not good defensively, but they get turnovers. And if you can limit the turnovers, you should score a lot of points on them. And so you kind of hope we're going to Chicago, to be honest. All right. That said, what an absolute mauling. So Packers decide to outstunt here. So they outstunt, come here, and then they're going to insert Williams. But the problem with this play is when you outstunt, and if they've got it dialed, and they can get the guard and the center up to second level, like he all of a sudden doesn't matter anymore. So even if they were going all the way backside, he just replaces, Evan Williams just replaces kind of where McDuffie would be. And because they got that great lead blocker to cover up, there's just not a lot you can do there. You'll see it here. Goes over to a two-tech, talking about Wooden. Outstunt. It's tough to get off. I mean, Lindenbaum's best center in the league for my money. Tough to get out of his block. Tough play. 22 personnel. And they run to the bubble. What do I mean by that? I mean the guard bubble. There's nobody in this B gap. So the B gap defender is just going to be Quay, who is having a great year, but let's face it, I don't like 72 very much, but I like 72 against Quay with a couple yard head start. And, these two guys running through the hole. Backside, just look how easy it is to cut off on the backside. You got the kind of square foot stance. I don't know if he's trying to jet out or just, I don't know what he's doing here, but he gets cut off way, way too easy. Obviously, Lindenbaum, Lindenbaum, you like, if you're the Ravens, you like Lindenbaum versus anybody on our defense. He does a great job against 97 here. I mean, that's just clinic tape. His ability to reach, keep that play side shoulder exposed. It's like if you're always bringing safeties from depth with a fullback, it's a little bit of a different animal here. And it's, again, the same situation where we talk about they might be inserting the safety in a different manner, but you'd almost rather have Coop here and insert him backside, looking back at it now, instead of doing this early, this early fill into the kind of the A gap area, because he's just McKinney's a great player, but he's not a big dude. And look, I mean, he just gets thrown out of the way. Doesn't get really any part of the tackle here. So we go 2nd and 9. This play is just disgusting. So this is the worst play in football I always talk about, right? Now, why does it work for them? Well, because they pin and pull, which is something we've talked about. I think we've tried it. We haven't been successful. But pin and pull, we're just going to go down block here, right? Instead of trying to win at the line of scrimmage here with the guard on tackle, they go pin and pull here. They bring their best offensive lineman, and it just makes this, the angles are tough. You have to feel confident that you can kick out Angabari. But if you kick him out, you're just going to see there's going to be a crease with a lead through. And you've got this guy, again, I'm not a huge fan of this play, the way we run it, but the way this is happening, there's a real good chance of success here. Especially knowing that you're 250-pound running back can run through arm tackles. I think Nixon does a good job here trying to get back the edge. But, you're already 10 yards downfield. 1st and 10. Still in the first quarter here, guys. Bunch look. Go motion over Zay Flowers. And this is just, talk about run fits. So you're going to fill with Evan Williams again. So he's going to come down. So you've got basically everybody here, including Evan Williams, is responsible for him. And he is responsible for Snoop Huntley. And I think he stumbles a little bit here, to be fair. But, in this defense, in this particular defense, you got one job. Motion was Zay. No pass rush. Valentine just somehow misses this tackle. I just don't know. And this is what guys are talking about. What do you do? Quick throw. They bring 5. But when you throw the hitch and get 20, get 15, bringing 5 don't sound so good anymore. 1st and 10. I've never seen. I think McDuffie's a hell of a physical, violent player, right? But likely just puts it on him right here. They just run a swing. They got the numbers. They feel good about it. Corner's playing off. He's got Quay Walker, rightfully so. He's got Quay Walker leveraged. They play it late, and it's damn near a first down again. But McDuffie just gets, likely just really. Knocks him 4 yards deep out of bounds. You don't see that. There's always in these games, and sometimes this is just an AFC, NFC thing. Sometimes it's just particular teams, but sometimes you just get completely out physical, and you can't really. It just doesn't seem, even with the guys like that, it just doesn't seem normal. Okay, so they've gone to a jam look, which they did a lot in this game. Mixon somehow doesn't set the edge. Kind of saw this with the quarterback keep on the other side. And they're almost running like the kick play with their tight end and their fullback here. When I say kick, everyone's just kind of blocking down, and then this running back is really, you can take it play side, but you're really thinking like, I'm going to bounce this, and I just don't think this guy's going to fill very well. Usually you're going to run it downhill. He's going to fill too far outside, and you feel like he's going to arm tackle you for 5. If he misses, you got a big play. You don't usually think he's going to get out leveraged and actually run around the corner. But, let's just talk tacos here. Look at the movement they get everywhere on the line of scrimmage. I mean, if you're a linebacker in this game, like, what do you do? What do you do there? Everybody on the defensive line is getting blown off the ball. Eric Barr is a good player. Carl Brooks is a good player. They're all good players, but they're all undersized. They're all undersized. They're not in the jam here. I was wrong. They're in an under. That's just unacceptable. Run fits and discipline. 2nd and 9. Second quarter. Motion to trips. One thing that's been kind of, we're talking about Rashawn Gary a lot, and how's his get off? Is he primed, or does he have to dig in? Is he false stepping a little bit? Both these edge guys are just not really giving you anything in terms of. I think Barry's locked out. 70 just envelops kind of Rashawn Gary. There's just not a pass rush plan there that, to me at least, is dangerous. Again, quick throw, I get it. Carl Brooks with a great inside move here. And this is what you kind of envision playing against these guards. Is like, all right, let's make him change direction. Does a good job there. But, you don't have your starting quarterback in. He's, okay, a lot of quick passes, blah, 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 blah. Got to get home. Tough. And sometimes the pass rush doesn't marry up with the coverage. It doesn't feel that way, at least. So this play is just 2-minute drill. I mean, center doesn't have anybody to block. First and 3 on a quick toss here. I'll show you this from the end zone. For me, and this is it's like the Rashawn Gary kind of question marks. Is like, where do you think he's going? Like, look at his stance, his body position, his eyes. Like, where do you think he's going? And it's almost like first of all, he's not fluid out of a 3-point stance, he's not fluid off the ball. You see, it's like almost like what foot are you planting off of here? Easy pick. You love Quay. You love Quay to attack the outside shoulder here. Probably sees it a little bit late. Don't love what Valentine's doing. I guess you don't really have a choice, but it's tough. Now this is the worst play in football. Run to the bubble so that tackle's on his own. Right? So we've got numbers. Regardless of what happens here, this play isn't working. You got the safety in the box. We'll see him come down here in a sec. So Bullard's in. Great move by Nigbari. Bullard's got the outside contain. This play is going to be sunk. Great football play by him. Okay, eye backs, tight formation. Little toss. So they go to their jam look. For my money, outside plays against jams are so great. You get a lot of pin and pull action. It's easy usually to reach the 3-techs if you're not going to pin and pull. Van Ness does a good job getting off the ball here, but it doesn't really matter because they get that tight end through on Quay, which is really all they need. Fullback on Ricard. And I mean, I love Javon Bullard. I've never seen that. I mean, Derrick Henry's a big dude. Like, I don't see how you miss him. Like, completely miss him. It's wild. Great effort by Coop there. So it looks like they have 7 up. Looks like they're playing man. Obviously, someone's going to drop for the running back. At least. I think they drop. Is that Carl Brooks? They drop out. Maybe to pick off one of these inside routes. He just goes to the one-on-one matchup. At this point here, he's still, because of the way he stemmed this route, he's still got a 2-way go. He looks like he's playing with inside leverage. Should be ready to drive on this. Zay Flowers is one of the better movers in the league. You're going to keep contending with these kind of issues. And then I think this is the last one I put on here, the 25-yard touch, 26-yard touchdown. Run a little toss here. And 81 just really easily pins, Rashawn Gary. Really, really easily. Patrick Ricard does his job against Valentine. And the thing about these plays, I'll show it from the end zone, is when you've got everybody bunched in, it's a good thing if you think you're going to run these tight plays. But if you've got a back that you feel like you can run outside on, especially with a lead fullback, kind of erases a lot of problems. I'll show you. You can kind of see what I mean here. Like the tackle can just go right up on McKinney, the safety. And if this guy can just get at all, make him slow down, you've got no play. It's the responsibility of this player to, at the very worst, knock out the fullback, right? Best case scenario, he sees this, pivots out, but it's crazy. Their tight ends did an A+ job of blocking us. Yeah, one thing you saw there, and I didn't mention, was the offense minus Malik Willis had total, the running backs, at least seven carries for 19 yards. You're gonna there's nothing more to be said. You rush the ball with your running back 7 times for 19 yards. 7 times is atrocious. Even in this day and age in the National Football League, think how many teams love to run the football now. I don't think we're built for it. I don't think we're built for the outdoors. You just don't, we're more of a finesse football team than we are a downhill kind of aggressive team, but it is what it is. So with that said, let's get into a couple listener questions here, listener comments, and I'll give you my take. Yeah, a lot of people are just talking about bringing in a bruising fullback. Whether that's, and Juszczyk's not that kind of guy for the Niners, but obviously Patrick Ricard is that kind of guy. We've had those guys in the past, and we had Nick Lucci and Will Henderson when I was there, and they were both guys that can get downhill and cover up. I think the reason a lot of teams are going back to it is because the fits are different when you have a fullback in the backfield. Linebackers aren't used to, they haven't played high school and college football, being able to, having to hit, 280-pound fullback, certainly. And so I think that's a really underutilized weapon with a lot of teams, including the Packers. It's something that they can think about. I just don't know if it's in, his makeup, Yeah. People are saying Quay didn't have his best game, and I think that's fair. But you're playing against the best center in the league, and too many times you're allowing the best center in the league to get free access to your middle linebacker who only weighs 240 pounds. And that's a hell of a bad mismatch, especially when you're expected to take down a 250-pound running back who's running like a 4.4. So I think the design of some of the defensive things and where they were trying to insert the safety, we showed it on the tape. It was all, you understand, like, look, Hafley's really good coach, and you understand why they did a bunch of stuff. But the reality is, if you don't have a defensive line that's not going to get knocked off the ball, like, you're going to get your ass run over again and again and again. And we showed it on the tape. If the defensive line is being pushed to the linebackers are no longer effective. You could have, Patrick Willis and Luke Kuechly back there, and they are not going to be effective because they got to battle not only, a guard, but probably a guard, a center, and their defensive tackle. It's too much to ask. I'm not saying that, Quay didn't have bad plays in the game or this or that, but, when you think about, Jeff Hafley or Matt before talked about the physicality, the run fits being the issue. It's like, run fits are an issue when you're getting physically beat up. Like, run fits are, or if you're playing you're playing a Barry Sanders, you don't have good run fits. But this guy's not hard to find, right? And you see so many times with the pin and pulls, with the down blocks, like, how easy was it to pin our defensive end? How easy was it to get outside and get a fullback on a safety or a cornerback? Like, it's almost like you're wasting a 300-pound fullback on a 195-pound corner. But that's how easy it was for them to get outside. And especially when you're filling your safety into the middle, into the A gap. So it's again, I think they went in with a game plan, which was, we don't have Micah Parsons anymore. He's our best everything. We don't know how to create pressure. We don't know how to fit the run because we have really, really small defensive tackles. And again, they can be good players. They're just undersized. And you're going against big guys who can move, particularly at the center and left tackle position. You have a mobile 300-pound fullback, and you have a mobile 250-pound running back. Like, this is one of those games that, it's a good thing that you don't have to see these guys in the NFC, because I think they'd win 8 out of 10 games. They're just a better football team, or the matchups make the game, and this is a bad matchup for this team. With Stackhouse inactive, he's enormous. That's a good point. I don't know. Do inside runs make blocking easier or more difficult for the O-line on run plays? Why is Matt LaFleur persistent on the play call? Well, he's not. He wasn't persistent on anything. He ran 7 times. But it depends. So we showed it on the against the Packers. If you're going to go into a jam, just pin pull, just run outside. It's easy. The edge is already there for you, especially when you got small edge guys or guys that aren't playing the edge very well. If you've got interior guys that are just going to line up in a 6-man box, 7-man box in like an even defense, if you have a good center, do whatever you want, because you can run downhill. There's no, like, it's not easier or harder. It really is what the makeup of the team was. Now, I showed on the preview tape that, against the Ravens, when they've got, 350-pound D tackles, like, run the ball outside, because you saw on tape, everybody was hooking those guys, right? And now you have to deal with Roquan Smith. You got to deal with Kyle Hamilton. Like, they're really good players, but you can at least have a plan, and you can make this. You need to be able to make the assumption that your guards are going to be able to win those blocks, right? And I think for the most part, the guards did a good job. You saw, I saw the right tackle. Zach Tom's not there, and Jordan Morgan's filling in, and again, not the most physical player. He had some issues in the run game as well, but there's just, you get to a point with these kind of teams where banging your head against the wall trying to run A gap stuff when you're not going to get movement against their defensive tackles, because that's not the team you are. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But Riley tore his Achilles. Yep. A lot of people are talking about Rashawn Gary, and I think, I'll be honest with you. Like, I've been a huge Rashawn Gary fan, and even when he's not playing well, it's like, well, he usually plays against the run. He's got great effort, and it's not there. I don't know what and I don't know. I don't know if he's injured, because when you watch his get off is different. It's not good. He's false stepping, or like his weight distribution isn't well. He's slow on reaction. He's not aware of like the down blocks. It was a really, that part of the game was like, you just don't know what happens with people, and you don't know what the background is, the backstory, and you don't know. Like, I always assume that a guy's hurt when his play drops down significantly, particularly on like chasing the ball and everything. You just start thinking like something else has to be going on. Like, he must be injured or something, because like he's never been that kind of guy. He hasn't been a great pass rusher for years, but he's never been that kind of guy. talking about physical play. They're talking about the best tight end in the NFL, Tucker Kraft. I don't know if that's true, but he's really good. Play the role to elite levels. He's not really a fullback. I think, like Tucker Kraft, I think when I talk about Tucker Kraft being a really physical player and kind of the tone setter for this team, I think he's competent as hell in the run game, particularly when you compare him to the Packers' alternatives at tight end. But I think the yards after catch is what we talk about, and his ability to break tackles after catching the football is what really kind of separates him and makes him more like a George Kittle type of player. I think he's more like George Kittle in the passing game, necessarily the run game. I think the problem is now is you see like you don't have a tight end that can block, particularly in a game like this. Now, contrast that with the two backup tight ends that played for the Ravens, Lively, and I don't know the other man's name, but they had A+ games. I mean, they had A+ games against our defensive ends. And it's like that just, is that a function of who they are? Is that a function of how they're coached? Is that a function of the scheme? Like what? It's probably yes to everything, but it's wild, man. I've said it before. Like I would, if you play tight end in the National Football League, you can't inline block. Like I don't want you on my team. I don't care if you can stretch the defense. I don't care if you're a bad matchup in the passing game. Like I don't care because I'll just get another receiver. You do the same thing. Matt LaFleur should take note what a real fullback does for your run game. Yep. Having such a light D line look bad on paper and where season started. Replacing Slayton and Clark with guys who weigh less than 300 pounds. It was done. Yeah. I think it's just tough, man. It's and then White getting hurt. You're just in this bad situation. But again, fundamentally, like what kind of team you're trying to build? Like it feels like they want to be on AstroTurf on indoors, where like all the speed and all that can really help. Dude, you're on Lambeau grass in the wintertime for last 2 months of the year in playoffs. It's like, is that the kind of team that you want? I mean, do you want guys that are light and you just think are going to like win all the time because of their quickness, even though the planning service isn't as good, they're not going to be as fast. Like it's hard because like I think Wooden's played well. I think Carl Brooks, like I think they're good players. I think all those guys have Enigbari. Like I think he's a really good player. But the reality is, all those guys are undersized. Every one of those guys is an undersized player. And so when you get against a competent, well-coached offensive line, like you should expect to lose a lot, and maybe you have to stunt more, but there's such risk and reward for stunting, especially when you're playing against a 250-pound running back that can break arm tackles. When playing in the trenches, as you have as an NFL guard, what makes a successful O-line is more fundamentals or attitude? Yes. I think attitude's really, really important, but being able to follow that through with the way you prepare is incredibly important. And I think, my personal philosophy on most guys in the NFL is that most guys, let's just use just only in the building. I think a lot of guys need to be going outside the building, and a lot of guys do, and a lot of good players do. But let's just say just when you're at work, you are finding more and more, and I found this when I was in Miami, guys don't know how to get good. Guys don't know how to how to fix their problems. Guys don't know how to get out of the hole that they're in because they've always been successful. They're best athletes in the world, right? So once they get to the level where like everybody's as good as they are, it's like, oh, what do I do? And I think guys want to be good, at least when they're at work. And it's the responsibility of the building to give them that information. So coaches have two things they need to do well, right? They have to put players in positions to be successful, and they have to give them the tools to find success. And I think we do a pretty good job with the other. Running Carl Brooks all night. Yeah, I mean, he's undersized. It's tough. I just don't think he's a major liability as compared to everybody else. To your point, Furiel. I mean, usually when you run somebody play side, that means your backside guy's getting blown off the ball too. So, I mean, and we saw it on Carl Brooks, Wooden, everybody was getting, the backside's getting moved off the ball. They're getting hooked really easy. It's too easy to do the stuff. And that's why I go back to, like, if you want to run all the stunts and stuff, like, is this the team or is this the environment that's what you want? You're not playing on turf. You're not indoors. You have long grass. It's wet. It's cold. It's all that shit. So it's like you're not going to be faster. I don't get that. Yeah, practice squad receiver blocked our edge rusher into the next county. Rashawn has 0. James Harrison is, but okay, I don't need to talk about that. So, responding to one of my, I made a comment about the 300-pounders. Green and Gold Draft says it can work and work well if schemed correctly. Penetration is key, especially against downhill running back. It needs to be schemed up via sudden realignment, slant and run splits. It's always risky and outside. Yeah, fair. I mean, I would never I agree to you. I agree with you to a point. You can everybody can draw stuff up on the chalkboard that looks great. Scheme is for every play you can run a scheme that works well. I think at the end of when you have to put the chalk down, you got to actually go on the field. The players have to be able to execute the scheme, and if you're not physically capable of executing the scheme because you don't have good technique, because you're too light, because for whatever reason, you don't have great hand placement, you don't have good profile, good leverage, that stuff matters to me like so much more than scheme. When you get into a situation where you want to, you say you want to realign, you want to slant and run blitz, okay, that's great. If a team's got a beat on you, and most of these, if you watch, a lot of run stunts and everything in this league, usually there's a guy on the defensive line that tips what's happening, right? Whether they stand up at the end position, they widen their stance at the 3 technique because they're going to loop out. They cover down at the 5 technique on the backside where they're actually going to bring the pressure. Like that stuff is, if you're watching tape, you have a good offensive line, good offensive coordinator, you're going to see that stuff. And what happens is, you got a 250-pound running back who's going to break through an arm tackle, or you're going to seal off the backside 1 or 2 plays by just running some sort of pin and pull, and you've got real issues, right? The best pure defensive lines in the league, they're not really concerned about stunting around. It's not that they won't do it, but they're doing it for a specific purpose. They're not doing it as like a business practice. But you're not wrong, my opinion. This guy says, why are we glazing the lines so much? Yeah, I think we're glazing the line. Well, listen, I think the Lions draft and develop strategy. For me as an ex-player, someone who's coached in a building, someone who coaches people now, the thought process of getting a little bit away from the animal. Well, first of all, let's talk about, Matt Millen's Lions. They were in a hole for over a decade because of what Matt Millen did to that team. They had the best football player I've ever seen in Barry Sanders and couldn't do anything with him. They never had, they had Matthew Stafford and couldn't do anything with him. They had Calvin Johnson. We had potentially two of the top 5 players of all time retire early because they were like, these Lions can't get out of their own way. So I think bringing in leadership with a solid vision and somebody who's willing to execute on a vision and take the pain, I commend anyways. I think that the idea of drafting players in the first round that are going to play and play at a high level day one supersedes for me drafting somebody who's a project that might have more RAS score, whatever you're using to measure like your intangibles. Now, and I guess the last part of that goes along with it is the Lions have made a concerted effort to bring in a lot of ex-player coaches who have experience playing at the highest level and doing very well. Mark Brunell is the first one that always comes to mind, but obviously Hank Fraley, their line coach, Dan, and then having high level coaching as well. Those guys aren't just like first year guys, and then they were very fortunate to be able to bring over Ben, who's a great play caller. Aaron Glenn turned out to be a great play caller for their defense. Also, obviously, a former corner. So it's like, I like that thought process, and I'll just say it like, you can talk about they have one more win than us in the playoffs. I think it's a pretty, the last 2-3 years, this year notwithstanding, the Lions have been one of the top. When you look at the totality of the league, your Lions are in the top 2-3 teams, and they're for my money, when I watch the game and we're playing them, win or lose, like they're a really physical football team, much more so than we are. I mean, from like player 1 to player 53. I just think they're a more physical football team, and that's a brand of football I like to play and I like to watch. Yep, this guy just wants to add a nose tackle next year, and I think we're too far in. Like, the cool thing about the NFL is, like, who cares what happens in Minnesota? But Jordan Love's going to be back for the playoffs, and let's see, everybody's feeling pretty healthy. You don't love that you don't have Tucker Kraft, but you're going to have Zach Tom back. Your offensive line is going to be the same unit that it needs to be. I think most of the receivers are healthy. And you're not gonna get Micah Parsons back, but all the guys that are banged up probably won't play next week. You're gonna get guys, everyone's gonna feel just a little bit better. And like, all you have to do in this league is hit a hot streak. And like, with Matt LaFleur calling plays and Jordan Love throwing the football and Josh Jacobs in the backfield, like, things can happen. And Philly's a beatable team. The Bears are certainly a beatable team, and they're a team you can score a lot of points on. So you feel like, get out. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Packers get out of the first round. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think the Packers beat this. I think the Packers will have a hard time against NFC West teams. I just think that's a more physical brand of football than they're used to playing. I'm not really worried about anybody from the NFC South. I know the Panthers beat them, but like, if you watch the Panthers, yeah, they can run the football. I'll give them that. I mean, that kid's hard, a tough kid. Bryce Young's playing pretty well. I just, if there's a path to getting to the championship game before having to play an NFC West team, you feel pretty good about the Packers' chances. I think the NFC West is a more physical brand of football. I think their defense are more. I think the Rams' defense would give our offensive line absolute fits. I think Seattle will give us. I think they have it. They will give us absolute fits. And I think those passing games particularly you see Purdy play last night. You just got a lot on your hands there. Those are tough ass football games, and all those guys are everything's a road trip too, and I think that makes it more and more difficult. So I think that's a wrap, guys. Listen, I don't know if I'm going to do a Minnesota thing because I don't know if these guys are even show up. Who knows who's going to play, right? We can just start focusing on the playoffs and the playoffs come. So that's it. That's it. Wrap for the show. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're enjoying this, if you're enjoying the breakdowns, hit the subscribe button, rate and review, share it with an NFL fan, and listen, we're here to educate and entertainment. I'm Mike Wahle. This is Block Party. Thank you guys for watching.